Gębka, również farma świętokrzyska. Pan Michał Korylkiewicz, Ukraine Corporation Federation. Witam serdecznie. I pan Sebastian Pienkowski, zastępca dyrektora KOWR. Witam również oczywiście państwa serdecznie, wszystkich zebranych na tej sali.
Food industry, agriculture is the third pillar of every well-developing economy. Time where we are now, related with food production, is facing many abnormalities. We have droughts, natural disasters, now the pandemic time.
Bardzo różne zjawiska. Pandemia doprowadziła do sytuacji, w której doszło do przerwania łańcuchów dostaw żywności, w którym mieliśmy ograniczenia przepływu towarów, mieliśmy ograniczenia w zakresie przemieszczania się osób. To wszystko może powodować w przyszłości zaburzenia w zakresie bezpieczeństwa żywnościowego państw, ale również może wpływać na stały wzrost cen żywności. W związku z czym warto zadać sobie pytania, z czym się musimy zmierzyć i w jaki sposób w przyszłości zapobiegać.
And how can we prevent that kind of events? Mr. Minister, thank you very much for touching upon this topic. It's a nice topic. Everybody likes to eat. When you look at me, you see I like to eat more. It's something people cannot live without. We just need food. We need to eat every day. Only thanks to that we are alive. I am not a fan of saying that you are what you eat, but there is a link between what you eat and the condition of your body. On the market, we see great availability of food, availability that has never been there in the world. People would eat in the past what was grown in the closest vicinity, because there were no means of transport, there were no continents that were open and available. So in a very natural way, the local communities would eat what was close to them. Now, on the global market, thanks to the ease of transportation and the cheap transport, there are many products available. The situation is that anything that is produced in the world, sooner or later will reach any part of the world. The plants that we would see only in special places on the other corner of the world, now you can find it in Lidl or any other store near you. It's good because everybody who is interested in novelties likes to try new things, and it's good to have that available. But I'm convinced that we should go back to principles that were old, well-functioning, and our health would benefit from that. I think that the food that we have to process to make bread should come from our vicinity. Of course, I'm not saying about places like deserts or places that cannot produce their own food. We are very lucky to be a country that is safe in food. We are a huge agriculture country. We're not as big as Brazil, and we wouldn't like to compete with them in terms of the number or volumes of food. We would like to compete with the world with the quality of our food, the exclusivity of our food, the fact that we would like to convince the world, first of all, our customers. We have to convince the Poles, who for years have been trained, I wouldn't like to use the bad name, that those foods were not actually foods. And we have been trained that you can eat something which is not proper for you. And that was very often introduced by large food chain companies. The food through tens of years has changed a lot. The progress in agriculture, that was a progress when there were deficits of plants, the Liebig law, fertilizers, and all the development in the evolution of plants, and all those novelties like DDT or herbicides, pesticides. Some substances are removed from the world, although the world has been used to that, like glyphosate. Prepared plants, Roundup Ready, are there to make the work of the farmers easier by using one product, that is glyphosate. And its consequences was a long-term use. It's not like if you remove the weed once in a while with glyphosate will make harm to you. Although EFSA does not confirm that, no European country has decided to remove glyphosate from agriculture. It's limited in use in parks, in the cities, and places where people are. However, in agriculture, it was not removed. I know that there's this big campaign to prove that it's a toxin that is in each of us because we live in the world. That was also in Karpacz, the huge protest. That the food has changed and the composition of plants and what we eat from plants is dramatically worse than what we ate 50 or 100 years ago. The data from different research institutes, I use the data from Drought Foundation, and they show that what we know as broccoli, carrots, or beans, and what that plant used to be 70 years ago when they started investigating the ingredients of the nutrients of the plant, they're two different plants. Now it's looking nicer and nicer, but it has less content. This plant has no nutrients now. We buy with our eyes. So the carrot has to be straight, colorful, it has to look nice on the shelf. Sometimes it's sprayed on with something so that it's more glossy and nicer. And in terms of the nutrients, it's not much in there. We've been used to that. All different diseases, cancers and stuff, maybe are not the consequence of that, but I believe that if my grandfather under Kiev, if we fed him with what we eat now, the granddad would die the same day, I think. He wouldn't fight with Piłsudski against Bolsheviks. We all speak about food. We don't buy food. We buy a story about food. They pull the wool over our eyes about the quality of food that we're eating, but it's not true. We never know if a certain food product is proper to eat it, but it looks nice. We have to bring back food that is safe, that's going to build the natural strength of our body, the food that will be adapted to the requirements of the consumers, like confectioning, packaging, processing of that food. But first of all, we have to restart. If we have ersatz, Humbug, and not food, with no drugs we'll be able to remedy that. That's kind of scary vision. I think the president of Lille we'll be able to refer to that. Lidl has been surprising us recently, 700 stores. The Lidl Market Square, local products, high standards in food that is introduced to the shelves, and the ecological food shelf that comes from Poland. How would you respond to that in terms of your food chain? Mr. Minister, Mr. MP, ladies and gentlemen, I will make reference to what Mr. Minister referred to. I've written some down, just like the quality of products, availability, keeping the products local, export, and the possibility of selling our Polish products abroad, as well as the process of their production. Mr. Minister, you mentioned about how the products look like. As Lidl, first of all, we take care of the quality first. And we see that within more than 10 years, as I have been working with the company and as the market has been changing, we have observed that the Polish consumer has started to pay attention to the quality of the products, not only to the looks, but first of all, the quality and the content. I can tell you that Lidl Polska per year does at least 9.5 thousand research that is targeting the quality of the nutrients in all food articles. In terms of our standards, we have more restricted standards than those that are allowed in the European Union. Our norms or standards are 3 times more strict than the European acceptable ones. We want to promote the Polish food, and this is what we do in our stores. It's not any secret that Lidl Polska in 2019, with a yearly turnover of 21 billion zlotys, more than 70% of that turnover was generated thanks to selling Polish foods. On top of that, what is very important is that in 2018 and 2019, we were said that, according to Rzeczpospolita, that we were the largest exporter of the Polish food abroad. We exported food for 5.5 billion zlotys of Polish products to the markets of the European Union. I told you about the quality, so now let's move to availability. You made reference to the pandemic and the situation that affected us at the beginning of this year, at the beginning of March. In strict cooperation with Pochit, with the ministry, we kept informing that in our stores there is no breach in availability of products that are necessary to live on a daily basis. Mr. Minister, you mentioned that we have to eat every day. We make sure that the Poles have food available every day, but not only food, but all the necessary products for a daily existence. We pay a lot of attention to the quality of the products and the availability of those. Availability during the pandemic time, I can refer to the situation when we were waiting for that situation, not consciously, it just happened. So the panic among the customers of our network and in all the society, where people rushed to the stores to stock up. When there's any kind of crisis coming in, the crisis is always related to the lack of food in stores. We were working tightly with the ministry, and we underlined we would provide food constantly and it would be available all the time. Within less than 20 hours, we would be able to see the empty shelves of different stores in Poland. But within 24 hours, we controlled the situation without any problem. And we stocked up back.
Następnie w trakcie
Next, during the severest blow and wave of pandemics, we introduced measures to ensure safety for our customers who are preparing for traditional holidays, Easter holidays. The pandemics came just after Easter. We, as the network of stores, were also preparing to provide Poles with all the products, all the food that they need for Easter and in daily life. We have made a very quick decision to open our shops 24 hours a day. Over just 70-something hours, 72 hours, we prepared to open 500 out of 700 of our shops, of our stores, round the clock before Easter, so that everybody could prepare for the holidays. This was pretty exceptional, and I would like to thank all of our employees who approached the whole situation with a lot of patience and discipline. Everybody felt responsible for getting the stores ready in the best possible way and to present the goods, the food products, in a way that would make it easiest for the customers to do their shopping. Having stores open round the clock was quite a big deal for us in terms of effort. Our employees were up to the challenge, and we were all capable of preparing our families and preparing for holidays, for Easter. Do you see that consumer expectations are changing? Are you, as Lidl, also informing your customers? I know that our customers are more and more interested in the ingredients in food products. I've seen customers also buying books on nutrition. So are you undertaking any activities in this direction, in this area? Well, it's not a secret that a few years ago we started a campaign through which we teach Poles to cook and to use food products and process them in a beneficial way. The campaign, probably you've seen our advertisements in the cities, on TV and radio, the famous duel between two chefs, the competition that we initiated together with Karol Okrasa and with the National Center for Nutritional Education. We created a nutritional knowledge base for youth and seniors. Probably you remember the magnet that we prepared, the fridge magnet, displaying the food pyramid, which we defined together with Karol Okrasa and with, let me tell, let me repeat, with the National Center for Nutritional Education. The very basis is, of course, sport, physical activity, which is very important to prevent diseases and promote good nutrition. We also published a book, How to Eat Healthier and Live Longer. This book was created as a collaboration and focuses on preparing meals for seniors based on these recipes. You can really enhance nutrition. These recipes were created with education in mind. Now we can say that the most important point for us is prevention, disease prevention, promotion of good nutrition and sport activities. We have published this book in 2 million. There are 2 million copies. So we also became one of the biggest cookbook publishers in Poland. But I do understand that Lidl is not. That does not have the intention to open a bookstore, right? You're not becoming a bookstore, right? Well, no, we are not becoming a bookstore, but we have another idea for a comic book for children in which we describe a good way to approach food. The title is Super Strong Against the Health Thieves. I have to say that this book made quite a big impression on the children of my neighbors, because I remember a child coming up to me and ask me about these health thieves, whether they are really in potato chips. I looked into your publishing offer. I could see a quite interesting offer for children. When you explain relationship between food that we consume and health. If you want to have good muscles, if you want to be lean, you have to do this and that and eat healthily. And young people and children are getting interested in this, and they learn that what you eat actually affects how you feel. Would any of our panelists like to add something? If not, let me sum up. We mentioned the important events in the context of pandemics and the food security. You mentioned food availability, which is also food security, quality, which also translates into health. I would also add one more element, origin. Origin, which translates into economy. And I would like now to develop the topic of these three pillars. The business model in Poland has been changing. In the past, it was based on local food shops, small shops. In each region, there were lots and lots of such shops, and the owners were bringing food in from the local bakery, from the food market. There were people employed in the shop, several employees, several people in the accountancy, several drivers. The consumers went to the shop, did their shopping, left the food there, went for work. And then we had this kind of closed circuit. The consumer went to the shop, left their money there. The money went to the pockets of the owner, of the wholesaler. We had a closed circuit for money flows as well, and we also had farmers selling their produce. And since we had economic transformation, big food store chains are now pushing the small shops away from the market. And we have distribution centers and foreign suppliers. So the consumer now goes to the supermarket, leaves the money there. They make purchase there. money get transferred, employment went down, farmers have difficulty in finding market for their produce, local food processing plants have less and less customers because we have big distribution centers where wholesalers, where big stores buy lots of kinds of food. So now, seeing the difficult situation in which we are now, considering the breakage of the food supply chains, the carbon footprint issues, I wanted to ask you whether it wouldn't be worthwhile to consider a situation where a food store chain would be bound to have not less than 10 or 20% of produce and food products coming from local suppliers. We have bakeries, we have local milk factories. It makes sense to support the local food market because of food security. As Mr. Minister said, under the supervision, the quality of food, means of transport, ways of distribution, it really is burdened with a lot of risks. So perhaps we should consider going back to the elements of old model. And now the question to Mr. Mahoy, would you consider it possible? Would you see it as a good solution for big food store chains to be supplied from local market in 10%, to have 10 or 20% of their produce and products supplied from local market? Well, this is an endless battle between butter and margarine. It all depends on who pays for research. It goes the same for other foodstuffs. And to say that sport is healthy, you don't need to do research because everybody knows that. Our own experience as a generation is that we have now the supermarkets, which came onto our market a bit later than in the Western Europe. So we have consolidated big food store chains which act on a big scale, have their distribution networks, supply chains. I don't want to start any fight here. I'm not sure whether we would understand each other. Isolating trade from local supply chains is actually what happened. Long supply chains, goods going around the globe, becoming anonymous, of unknown origin, finally finding their way, its way to the shelves. Probably we cannot get rid of that kind of trade, but I can see some change in the approach taken by food store chains, not only Lidl, but others as well. But all the changes are actually forced by the consumers and their choices. It doesn't depend on the changes in the strategy. The strategy is simple: to transfer all the costs to the supplier. Look at the store such as Lidl. It's all based on this idea. Now the networks are getting the products from the local market, but it's a fashion, because we managed to convince them to buy Polish food, and Germans convinced the stores to buy German food. Europe is going in that direction. The Council of Ministers, which was held a few days ago, I took part in the council. We actually discussed the possibility of labeling food according to the country of origin. The consumers, according to the research, consumers in Europe absolutely wish to have that indication, to indication of origin in terms of country of origin and in terms of region of origin. People don't want to buy food that's anonymous, and people start to notice the connection between where the food comes from and the overall condition of the society, the social programs that Law and Justice is introducing in Poland. And then big food store chains, seeing the situation changing, they also start to adjust their strategies because the consumers expect that. If they don't, the consumers will go to another store. However, the rule to rip off the supplier is still there. According to the data that I have at my that are available to me, many additional costs, various costs that are not completely lawful, account for around 30% of the food store chain's revenues. Some people say that it's even more. And the overall turnover for this sector is around 250 billion zlotys per year. So you can just imagine what kind of money we're talking about. The slogan that says that food needs to be cheap is a myth. Food of good quality needs to be expensive. Food that is cheap will obviously be of bad quality. This is a broader philosophical phenomenon. People become more and more affluent, more wealthy. You can just look at the cars here on the parking lot. What kind of trips we're taking on holidays, where do we live? We want to benefit from all the pleasures of life, but we want to have cheap food. We want to spend just a small percentage of our salaries on food because the rest of money, all this needs to be spent on exotic trips and good cosmetics, right? No, I'm just simplifying it, but this is a complex issue. There is this obligation to provide cheap food, and big stores want to have cheap food on their shelves. So they want to have very cheap carrots that look good and that are of good quality. So they actually push the suppliers. You pay 1.5 zloty for 1 kg of potatoes in a store, but the farmer gets 20 grosz for this. How can farmers keep up with this kind of strategy? There's no way. We have the court ruling of 2017 saying that food store chains can only have their own margin on top of the prices paid to the suppliers. But of course, the chains and big stores have money for lawyers, have money for interventions. They can defend themselves against potential lawsuits. The potential and the share of the market means that the suppliers fear that they will just not find their way on the market if they don't agree to these conditions. And you mentioned the organization to which you belong, but this is not a Polish organization, even though it has Polish in name, because it is an umbrella organization for foreign companies. So answering the question, yes, we need to do everything we can so that people can buy food that is recognizable. It's no longer anonymous. Food that, through shortened supply chains, will ensure good revenues to all the parties. It would be best if the farmers could sell directly to consumers, which is, of course, very difficult. However, this sector, well, this sector is developing direct sales from farms, retail sales, which is probably the best option, which allows farmers to fully benefit from all the advancements. Of course, there needs to be checks on quality, on safety measures. Making it easier to slaughter animals on site. That's the direction that we are taking. Of course, we have organic food offered by big stores. The consumers need it, so yes, great, let the stores do it. But the general principle on which big stores are based is to organize the whole process so that the store does not bear costs and push the costs to the suppliers. And that's really a masterpiece, what they managed to do over the last few decades, where these big food store chains were developing in Europe and across the globe. The income, the revenues that are now going to the big stores should actually go to the farmers, to those who work, who make the most of their work. Meetings like these should not only be the place where we all say pleasant things to each other. I think the Economic Forum needs to touch the core of the problem, and the core of the problem is the structure of sales of food products in Poland. The farmers are taking all the risks, climate-related, COVID risks. They do most of the work, and they are not making money because it is the stores and food store chains that are making the money. Let me just remind you about this straight, beautiful carrot. It's not that all carrots are like this. 20% of food is discarded because it's not up to standards. The carrot has two parts, because there was a stone in the soil, because the onion doesn't look according to the expectations. We are discarding a lot of food. 30% of food is lost, is wasted. This is a sin. It's also stupid, because we are wasting resources, natural resources, and we are wasting labor. But that's the standards set by the food stores. They need carrots that are beautiful and straight. And we're going to make carrot grow in a straight way. So this is all very difficult. I am very much a supporter of what you just mentioned, rebuilding local markets, supporting short supply chains. In many countries, this is done by showing which farm the food comes from, how many kilometers away is it located. Transporting goods across the globe will soon end. Getting apples from Chile, well, we have our own apples in Poland. Of course, there might be consumers who want to eat apples from Chile, but that is based on complete misunderstanding and lack of understanding of the local economy. I'm sorry to say, but the agriculture will not be able to develop in Poland, or it will not reach good quality standards. It won't be the agriculture that supports human health if food is going to be distributed and marketed in the current way.
Mr. Minister had to defend the president of Lidl. He's here with us, not without a reason. We would like the majority of the food chain stores would implement practices that are similar to what Lidl did. 70% of the products from their shelves come from the Polish production. That they're very good results. 5.5 billion of worth Polish food exported from Poland. Mr. President, I know that now Lidl is implementing very interesting solutions in terms of connecting to the local farmers. Can you speak more about that? Yes. Mr. Minister touched upon many very difficult topics that relate to some networks, but speaking of Lidl Polska, I'm happy you mentioned about the values again, where we exported more than 5.5 billion zlotys in food worth products in 2018-19, and there were Polish farmers that produced that, Polish producers, the majority of food, of course. And the turnover we generate in the country is more than 70% of the turnover that is generated by selling in Poland and of Polish food. Grown, produced agricultural and food products. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that we focus on the Polish products. On the shelves you can find different, more than several hundred products with the Polish logotype. If it's composed of many ingredients, at least 80% of those ingredients were produced in Poland. Then it can be tagged as a Polish product. Food safety of these products, as you said, Poland is in the top ranking of the production of food products. The quality of our product is appreciated on many markets of all the EU. And as Lidl Polska, we export this food to other countries as well, and this is very much appreciated in Europe. Supporting suppliers or cooperation with all the suppliers, I cannot agree with what Mr. Minister said. We as Lidl Polska in many cases support our suppliers, and I wanted to underline the topic that took place recently, like the pandemic time. Like the producers of flowers, I don't know if you know, but this is one of the many areas that suffered through the pandemic time very much. The sale of flowers dropped down by 70–80%. We as the company kept our promise. We kept the contracts that were signed, and we supported our providers. We were receiving 100% of the contracted flowers to keep those Polish companies producing flowers for us, to keep them going, to make them operate in a normal way. We were receiving the flowers at the normal prices and the contractual prices, even though it was very difficult to sell the flowers or to keep the liquidity of distribution going. Yesterday we spoke about that. Yes, you were receiving those flowers from the producers and you didn't sell the flowers, so you had to utilize the flowers. I know there were some proposals that those flowers that were not sold, that they would be handed over to nurses who come out from the hospitals, but I know it was not possible in terms of organization. The social distance that had to be kept limited our possibilities of distributing those flowers there. We had to utilize those flowers and we had to manage that. Supporting providers, suppliers is, since the beginning of March until May, more than 340 million zlotys that was paid sooner to our suppliers then in contracts. That was to help those companies have the liquidity, and we, as Lidl Polska, could secure the liquidity of deliveries to our stores so that every Pole could buy food products in our place. Not without the reason, the representatives of companies that we work with are here in the room. You listed them when introducing all of us at the beginning. We work with many Polish companies. I think it's not going to be any advertisement when I list them, because I would like to refer to what Mr. Minister said, that they are Polish providers. It's Polmlek that produces dairy products, Wipasz that provides animal products and poultry. And how about pork? We don't have 100% of Polish pork in our stores, but all the activities that we're preparing are there to change the situation. So until August next year, we will have 100% of Polish pork every day of the year. So until the end of the year, we'll have 100% of all the fresh meat products that will be Polish. Is there any cooperation of Lidl with the Polish farmers, like they provide you with vegetables, or you support some food producers that would like to work with, that you subvention their operations, or you help them start up? How do you do it? When listing those several companies, I wanted to say that we work with a company Fanpur, OSM Ryki, Magda Jogurty. This is a company we can refer to because thanks to the cooperation with Lidl Polska, they expanded not only in Poland but globally at the European level, where thanks to cooperation with Lidl Polska, Magda Jogurty is now exporting to other countries outside of Poland. Farma Świętokrzyska that we work with for years, and they provide fresh fruits and vegetables. We're also a leader in cooperating with Farma Świętokrzyska. We implemented new tags on ecological products for food, for veggies and for fruits. There are logotypes that are printed with light. When you buy, for instance, apples, you can see that there's a light tag of bio. That decreases production costs, that helps to improve the natural environment because you don't have to produce more packaging. Articles that are on the shelves are more extensive, so the customers can come and buy in bulk. They don't need to come and buy in packages. Some of the bio packages, that products that have to be packaged. You mentioned about potatoes. Yes, potatoes are packed in bags, and bio potatoes are packed in packaging that is produced of corn products, so they are biodegradable, and those products can be composted, so we are the leader of that. Answering your question, in terms of the support for smaller companies, a word that is said in Lidl Polska and signed in Lidl Polska is the word that is kept in 100%. So we keep every promise and every contract. When signing long-term agreements, we help them grow and develop, because they can be sure that once we sign an agreement, they can involve the money and grow, and they have the guarantee that we will be receiving the products from them that were ordered in the contract. So we're now preparing several projects like that. They are very innovative projects. We now speak with several companies. I can not tell you the details of that cooperation, but those contracts are there to make sure that we have the right quality, the right conditions in terms of the well-being of animals and their production. So all the issues related with the farming and preparing the quality of products and the quality guarantee of food, we make sure that it's kept. Not much time is left until the end, so I would like to ask Mr. Minister to sum up the panel and maybe some conclusions you might have. I don't feel strong enough to summarize this debate. Of course, the chains, they want to increase their revenue and they want to adapt to the market, and that's natural. But those that you're listing or the networks that are listed, you're saying that people should be happy that they can sell to the networks, but they come to me and they say, please add some money because we're losing when working with the food chain networks. We have to sell cheaper than we produce, so we're on the verge on what's feasible. So we're pushing those costs all on the farmers, and the farmers come to us and they say, please, can you give us subventions, direct help, because we have no money to live. And this, it's like a vicious circle, and this is a vicious circle. The fact that the networks, they change the purchase strategy, they do. Because if not the campaigns that people want to buy Polish food products, those food products are not there because of their goodwill. It's about promoting those products. That's why people come and buy Polish products. I think the products should be indicated not that they're Polish, but that they come from a certain region. Since the beginning of September, all the food that is frozen and meat that is frozen and not, they'll have to have flags of countries where they come from. There are 2 institutions that will be controlling whether those flags are properly placed, and if there's anything falsified in sales, the fees, the penalty fees will be very high, up to several % of the yearly turnover of the food chain network. Recently, there was a high penalty of 115 million zlotys for Biedronka network for cheating on the customers, and that was made by the Office of Competition and Consumer Protection. We work with them very tightly. The networks will have to change their approach, otherwise we will not allow to cheat on the Polish farmers. That's a hard statement that I'm making. I see some kind of approach. Now we're speaking of buying from the local market. 5 years ago, who was speaking about buying from the local market? People were buying through the central distribution centers, so you had to be big enough to make sure that you can provide foods for all the network in all Poland. Now, it's a progress that you can be smaller and you can provide your product to only one store only. But in all in the food chain, from the field to the table, the farmers, the producers are nothing. They earn no money. The networks earn the big margin. That has to change. I'm sorry that you have been beaten up by what I told you. Lidl is one of the very few networks that approaches those farmers in a more humanitarian way. But we all have to understand that other participants of the market, they want to live by. They want to manage. Carrefour is doing the same, but the food chain networks, they just cannot declare. We have to check what they're saying. Everybody is looking at their own business, but you have to make sure that every step of the way is well done, like from the work with the farmers up to the wages of the people and the products that are provided in the network. I think that many people in the big food chain stores draw conclusions. They're intelligent people, but all the process of trading food has become a defective system that discriminates those that put most effort in that, meaning the farmers. Mr. President, 2 minutes of conclusion. Is Lidl making efforts? I think it is. I will say it more decisively even. We do not only try to do our best, but we keep our promise. We work with the topics, and we've done that since the beginning. There's no shelf fee as such in Lidl, or additional fees, side fees that Mr. Minister mentioned, that other networks or food chain networks, they apply those fees to earn more money. In Lidl Polska, once again, we don't have any hidden costs that providers have to incur or producers of food have to incur. We operate according to the Polish law. We are a company that is a company. We pay taxes in Poland. In 2019, for 2019, we paid more than 1 billion zlotys of all taxes and payments that had to be paid according to the law. And 300 million zlotys in that, this is the CIT tax. Speaking of the providers, suppliers, we support them, we want to support them, we want to build Polish companies that produce Polish food, that not only are able to provide locally, but also can provide those products through our networks, where we are managing distribution so that the producers don't have to export the products and incur additional costs or transport those products several hundred kilometers. We have distribution centers organized in such a way that this transport is very much optimized. I want to state that we're open to cooperate with everybody who can offer something good to us and to our customers. We're happy to work with any good idea, and I want to declare that if there's will, if you would like to participate in creating new solutions, or if we can share our experiences with the regulating authority who will be preparing different kinds of solutions, we're open to operate, to cooperate, and to share our know-how that is very well worked out based on our experience. Thank you very much for those declarations. We'll keep your promise and will support you as local central government. As the central government. Our time is up. Before I thank our panelists and you for your attention, I would like to summarize in few words the topic that was mentioned today. First of all, we underline the importance of the availability of food in terms of food safety of the state, of you, of consumers, that is secured by the system. We spoke about the quality, that the quality is of great importance for health, body resistance, especially in pandemic times. And we also touched upon the topic of the provenience of food. And we focused on that in the very difficult times where the pandemic situation can lead to breaking the deliveries and in the transportation of food and people. And that availability is very important in terms of the relationships between distribution channels, food chain networks, distributors, and the local provenience of food. The local provenience and processing and availability guarantees safety, quality, and health because it's close, there's no carbon footprint, it doesn't have to be prepared to travel long distances, so it positively affects the health of our consumers. So that's the area that we have to focus on by establishing very strong cooperation in distribution channels, by supporting the farmers who produce locally and processing plants that operate, but they need distribution channels to grow and to support our local farmer economies. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much to our guests. Thank you.